everybody. Welcome to Stephanie's MarshStream. I'm Stephanie Wiseman, Artistic Director and founder of the Marsh and MarshStream, and tonight I'll be interviewing Carla Hoke-Miller from New York City's Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment. Tonight, still experimental. I'm still seating in a truck like last week in front of the Trinity Center grocery store in the Trinity Alps, hoping for good phone coverage to host this Zoom. Please consider supporting MarshStream and its artists with a tax-deductible donation to the tip jar. Tonight's tips are matched. And please subscribe to the Marsh's YouTube channel and be notified when all our shows go live. Now let's welcome Carla Hoke-Miller, Director of Theater, Programs and Entertainment, the New York City Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment. Hello, Carla.
Hi, Stephanie. How are you in your truck out there?
It's a little colder this week than last week, but I'm okay, happy, just hoping the bears don't get me.
That would be unfortunate.
I don't think they can get me. I'm in a truck, but oh well. I haven't seen a bear here, so I'm just using that.
Well, I have to commend you on everything you have going on. It's very exciting in this time to see so much good work being done.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And tell me, Carla, we met last January, at the APAP conference,
Hmm.
which is a gathering of performers and presenters from all over the country and world, and lots of showcases of artists. And we met and we were drawn to each other because I think I look like one of your good friends. Lucky for me that I look like your good friend. You were very nice to me. And we even got to go see an opera. We went to Prototype, which is really the reason, not APAP, that I like to go to New York in
Yeah,
January.
it's
And
amazing.
and it was wonderful. So tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today.
Okay, I'll try to remember. So I moved to New York. We moved around a lot as a kid. My father was a test pilot, so we moved to a lot of flat, dry places all over the U.S. Unfortunately, not California. The closest we got was Texas, which is no, bonus. And so then I traveled around. I studied theater for a while, and then I moved to New York in 1980. I'd always been interested in theater, but had really wanted to learn about all the production sides of it. So I did study that, pretty intensely, but wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And so I left and traveled, and then I ended up in New York City in 1980 after having a lot of odd, strange jobs, like Mark was talking about last week, very similar to what he did. And it was, I guess, around a year after that, I was living in a loft, and it was just when Soho was becoming kind of an artist enclave, and all the empty buildings from the fiscal crisis were being filled up because they had been empty for a long time and the manufacturing had left. So artists were starting to move in and squat and fix things up. And there were a lot of litigation around leases and landlords renting to commercial leases and saying that there was no living, wink, wink, and this kind of thing. So it was populated with artists, and there was a big art scene in Soho, and the galleries were there, and it was really amazing. So I got involved in a legal dispute in my building and formed a tenants association. And it kind of brought out this side of me that had been, something I was interested in law early on in my life, but hadn't really pursued. And so I went back to school, just to City University, to Hunter. And I was older and wiser and more focused. And so I went to get my BA degree, which I hadn't gotten before, and studied political science and urban affairs, and got in this specialized program that was basically a seminar in the city taught by people throughout the city in every kind of aspect of city government and public service. And it was amazing. And through that, I met a mentor who brought me into the Dinkins administration. And that's where I met my best friend in San Francisco, Susan Brown. We worked together for years. And David Dinkins just recently died at the age of 93. So it's very sad, but those of us that worked for him remained extremely close for a very long time. And so I worked for him when he was borough president, and then helped start along with Susan, a special projects unit there that was mostly trying to leverage funding for the arts and make art more important in city government than it had been in the past. Other than the Department of Cultural Affairs, which gives enormous amounts of money to not-for-profits and organizations and capital funding to building new theaters and equipment and that kind of thing. There wasn't really any office that was really devoted to helping beyond that, beyond the grants. And so then I went on and worked in the mayor's office of special projects, and I did things like that. Co-produced the Mandela Ticker Tape Parade when he came directly from jail after being released from prison, came to New York and stayed at Gracie Mansion at the mayor's house. And that was an amazing time for New York City. And then I was there throughout the end of that term. And then we all kind of went on our different ways. And I didn't go back into city government until the de Blasio administration. So about 6 years ago, I decided I had done a lot of social justice work and fundraising and strategizing and building things in media, conference departments, and a number of different things. But I also had kind of gotten back to my roots as a writer and had been working with in a workshop with playwrights. So that was really my first and foremost love, kind of why I moved to the city to begin with, which never really transpired. And so it's really funny how things happen. And I was looking for a kind of a steady job after freelancing and doing a lot of consulting work. And I went and interviewed with the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment's new commissioner, who was Cynthia Lopez at the time. And there hadn't been, even though it was the Office of Film, Theater, and Broadcasting, initially set up as the film permitting office kind of, and there was nobody representing theater other than just doing load-ins and load-outs for the Broadway houses and some kind of, other things for 12 years during the Bloomberg administration. So after my interview, I was offered a job to build a theater department. And because my first love was always with not-for-profit small theaters, for me, that meant an opportunity not only to see what we could do with Broadway, but to really develop programs and initiatives that would help the small theater industry and whatever it was that they needed. And so I set upon finding out what that was. Not from the, my position as a playwright or my position as, in the role of an audience member, but really had all the resources given to me and access to find out exactly what I could do. And so here I am.
Wow, that's amazing. So tell us a little bit about what you've been doing.
So for the past 6 years, we have an unusual situation in that we could develop initiatives in our office, meaning that we had cash left over for some from incentives that were given. Used to be the city would give incentives for films to be filmed here, incentive money. The state took it over and gave a larger amount, so there was this pot of money, and we had a 50th anniversary. And so we had these meetings about, okay, big ideas, what can we do? What can we set policy? What kind of policies can we start in motion that will take hold, get outside, partnerships going so that they're sustained? And so basically in the areas of workforce and education, we worked with Roundabout Theater and they now have a program that's 3 or 4 years in the making, where they have training for 18 to 24-year-olds who are interested in backstage, learning about backstage technical stagecraft and lighting and sound design. And we worked with Roundabout's teaching artists that taught in the Title I schools, which are the schools that were less served in those communities and reached out to them and tried to get their students that had been interested in working with those theater teaching artists to think about coming into this program, all paid, a job at the end in conjunction with IATSE, so that after 3 years, anyone who wanted to join the union would be qualified. And it's been a really successful program. These are all things that happened pre-COVID, so just so you know, but there's been a lot of pivoting since, and everything is still pretty much going along. And then we did something called Broadway in the Boroughs, where we brought like 30 concert versions of Broadway shows out to areas in parks that had no programming before. And we worked with the Musicians Union to get live music. We have a production company with really great quality. And then we did an off-Broadway in the Boroughs, which we'll talk about later, for small theater, with the small theaters around, and paid them a fee to just kind of stage a production out in a park for people that lived in the neighborhood. The office itself, you know, kind of has all these portfolios in the creative industry. So we're in a unique position to create things in film, theater, music, publishing. There's a media broadcast station that we do programming with. And so we kind of try to align all the things that the directors are doing. We meet every day and talk about how we can overlap things and initiatives to help the larger communities. And so we have something called, you know, Music Month, and we did a lot of promotion. One of the things around APAP was I worked with one of the marketing and communications person there when they would come to town and take over, you know, a hotel and a half and bring everyone here. We wanted to highlight the New York City festivals and organizations and convenings that happened around that time when everyone was in town, where they were showcasing work and having discussions about, really interesting discussions about theater, and academics were here and people from all over the world as well as all over the nation. So we thought it was a great time to promote local theaters. So we got partners that were well established, like Under the Radar and Prototype, and then some others. And you know, Jazz at Lincoln Center joined, Winter Jazz Festival joined. So it was really all performing arts kind of extravaganza. And we did a lot of print promotion for them. We had access to subway ads and bus shelter ads, and really got things in force. And this year, everything's going to be virtual. So we are sponsoring something called the Hub Space, which is a virtual reality meeting networking room that we're working with a startup in Brooklyn to kind of develop. So it's a whole new world, a whole new industry of how people are doing things. And artists are always on, you know, the ground floor of new media and creating new media and using it and being unafraid of using it. I mean, the partners that we're working with that are developing this with this company, basically in tandem, and they'll get to use it for the whole year. So they'll be helping them build it out, as well as, you know, experimenting with its uses. And they're all excited, whereas other people would be very intimidated, I think, if you just went to regular people and not artists. So
so with the it's called Jan Arts, right?
yeah, Jan Arts NYC.
And there's 9 or 13 different groups that are part of it.
Normally there's around 13, but because of the virtual aspect this year, there's 9 that really could find a form that worked. So there'll be 9 joining us this year, and it just varies. Whomever is doing work that they want to program.
And so they'll all still be doing performances, right? Yeah. Separately. And then this virtual thing will be a place. Can you talk a little bit about what this virtual thing is going to be like?
Well, it's basically, it's kind of a custom built space by this, it's like being inside a game, inside a video game. And you have a shape that has your face in it, and you go into the site and you can go into various places. And so each of the partners will have a room that they create their own environment. It has a screen so they can run videos, they can do panels, even though they're, as you say, their main productions, and all of the work that they're doing will probably be more on a Zoom platform kind of use. And people will register on their particular sites or through the NYarts site, which is the umbrella for all of them. This will be something that they can have cocktail parties in. The way it works, if you're in a little, you have your own little nanocube, you move around through this virtual space that's going to look like New York City in this case. And the closer you get to someone, you can hear them and have a conversation with them. And it's like a cocktail party where you can hear background noise. So you can move into a different area and then have a conversation with other people. So each partner will host their room so that everyone can get inside. And then there's communal areas where you can all meet. And they'll probably do big opening and closing things there. And so we're in talks right now and doing orientation meetings with all the partners to find out how they want to use the space, how there can be like times, during the month of January. It can't be active the whole time. So for January 6th through the 17th, it'll be active. So anyone that registers on for any one of the group's events and there's something going on that in the hub, they'll just be invited in.
Wow. Well, to get our audience to know a little bit more about NYarts, we have a video that we're going to play, and it starts off with Mario, who actually used to be the executive director of Yerba Buena before he got the job at APAC.
That's right.
NYarts NYC is a consortium of organizations that work together, and a lot of them were founded around APAP. APAP stands for the Association of Performing Arts Professionals. I realized it was a tremendous opportunity to work together with all of the other events and festivals that are taking place around APAP. And so we formed NYarts NYC, which represents all of these organizations working together as equals to promote the live performing arts, and it's been a very successful venture so far. Many of them are very specifically focused on dance, or focused on world music, or focused on one particular type.
For Prototype, it's been a great opportunity through the NYarts community for us to talk to each other as colleagues well in advance of all of our festivals and to come up with joint efforts. There's been some great collaborations that have come out of that, and some artists that we've shared across our festivals because of those opportunities. So NYarts is also a great opportunity for New York City as a city to be aware of the range of work that's happening at that time.
So the Ferris Festival is a really exciting festival that we do during APAP, particularly because it falls during APAP. This is our 4th Ferris Festival because it's the 4th season National Sawdust has existed. And it's really a wonderful way to present our artists that we support.
One of the reasons we started Global Fest is that there were a lot of artists who were coming and showcasing during the APAP conference, but they were showcasing in hotel rooms and ballrooms, in very artificial environments. So we wanted to put the artists in front of a general public audience so that presenters can move beyond their personal taste and their personal experience and see how the general public responds. We see the artists who have performed at Global Fest now on stages, performing arts centers, festivals, nightclubs, all around the US, all around the world. And so it's really helped to move international music from the margins to the center of the performing arts field, which was part of our mission.
Pretty exciting.
They're an amazing group of people. They really are. And we've done a lot of things for small theaters. We did a campaign last October that was a website that we did partnership with ShowScore and did a whole listing of the 200 events that were happening in October in small theaters. And then every company that existed got their website listed, and ShowScore did kind of peer-to-peer reviews. And so they had reviews going on for all the things that were happening. And we did, again, bus shelters and subway ads and local publications, because we're trying to keep publishing alive as well. And then right after that, our commissioned report that had been about 6 or 7 months in the making was a report on the economic and cultural impact of small theaters in New York City. And there are 748 organizations, 600 companies, 158 or so theaters, and physical structures. And it actually, the numbers are amazing. It's like 100, and this was in, last year. It's hard to believe. $1.3 billion in economic output, 8,400 jobs, and $500 million in wages were paid through this industry. That's what the study came up with. And so there hadn't been a study like this before because it's just no one had the resources to do it. And whenever people were trying to apply for funding or trying to get numbers, they just, especially when I was doing research when I first started, I couldn't find anything that was consistent that wasn't from 10 years back. And so I think it really helped a lot of people. When COVID hit, a lot of people used our numbers, and the Times covered it a lot. We got a lot of coverage around the report, which we're putting links. Brian's going to put links in the chat where everybody can go and look at anything that I'm speaking about more thoroughly. But it really made a huge difference, not only in bringing all those theaters together and then bringing forming these, kind of task forces and coalitions among them, because there's a lot of them in all the boroughs now, not just Manhattan. But it actually positioned us so when COVID hit, there was a lot of advocacy going on, and a lot of people had already communicated and worked on things together and unified in a way, some of them under membership organizations and some of them through a lot of the new things that popped up after COVID, a lot of the advocacy for the arts. But it really felt as if it was becoming cohesive after all these years of everybody kind of feeling as if they were isolated on their own and no one was listening to them. And they were just seen as the poor, stepchild to Broadway, which we all know is not the case whatsoever, even though we love Broadway. And I saw amazing work. I met amazing artists, and I've never seen more dedicated and more creative and more collaborative work, people in New York City of all the groups that I've worked with over the years. So I feel as if our office was responsible for putting the resources in the right places through all of the initiatives that we've done to really serve the people of the city in the way that they needed to be served. And the arts, to bring recognition to them, especially theater.
And you're saying a lot of this came out of this study. Could you talk a little bit more about the study and what you found?
Well, basically, I don't know if people understand the crazy structure of how off-Broadway, well, first of all, the definition of Broadway, off-Broadway, and off-Broadway is determined by the number of seats in a theater. So Broadway theaters are 500 and up, and then off-Broadway are $4.99 to $100, and off-Broadway are $99 and below. So it's this crazy system of how it's defined, because it's a very hard sector to describe, and the differences between them is something that most people don't know, I think. And so they all operate differently. A lot of the smaller theaters are not-for-profits. They get city funding from Department of Cultural Affairs from the city, and also a lot from the state funding from NYSCA, and private funders, as well as the NEA, a lot of them. The off-Broadway theaters there's about 10 of them that are commercial theaters. So they're similar to Broadway. They have, their tickets are more expensive, and they have, bigger, sometimes subscriptions, that kind of thing. And then Broadway, which is, its own world, which is another thing altogether. So I guess, one of the things that we found was that it was a sector that was growing, and it was kind of the golden age of small theaters before COVID. And so it's heartbreaking to see the study a year ago where it was, but we will get back there, and I'll talk a little later if there's time about how theater has pivoted and what they've been doing in the meantime to come back in a way that they'll be ready as soon as it's safe to open again.
So when you
say the study there's a PDF link, And it's really a beautiful piece of work. And we had an advisory committee of, 100 people from different theaters, and have some really good information. But it's a bit much to go through right now.
I thought you were going to read the whole thing to us, Carla.
Oh, once upon a time, there was.
But when you
I think my commissioner is listening, and I just want to shout out to her for being a huge supporter from the very beginning. Commissioner Andel Castillo, who has been was the COO for a while, and then appointed commissioner about a year ago, or maybe 2 years ago at this point, and has done a great job of stepping up, but always an advocate for theater and helping me with all my programs and supporting them and making sure that we could get money for them. So I appreciate all of that. And she's done that for all the creative industries that are in our portfolio. We are an anomaly in city government, and we're all very proud of the fact that we work nonstop, probably as hard as or harder than we did before the city shut down on lots of things, because a lot of the things had to be taken care of, like the protective clothing. A lot of costume shops helped with the patterning for that. Theaters have been using their spaces, lending them for testing, for polling, for manufacturing masks, for blended learning sites, really kind of a call to action. So as much as the theater report kind of brought together the theater community and gave them a voice, kind of a cohesive voice, I think the city agencies and the city government stepped in for whatever was necessary in this situation, and always trying to get as much information about safety and advocating for theater on every level of government constantly. Because as you and I discussed earlier, the arts are not always at the top of the list. And we are, but I think they're gaining traction. And part of with New York City, tourism is a huge economic force, as well as, Broadway. 65% of the people that attend Broadway shows are from out of town. And so there's like 98% of the people that attend shows in the smaller theaters are local, which is wonderful. And we really promote that. But it's really been really a hard hit area. But one of the things that's happened is, like, our Chamber of Commerce type organization, which is NYC and Company, which is very sophisticated and global. They've been really working with us on a lot of things that are local, like a virtual NYC site or virtual New York site that they put up with 400 plus experiences that can be, everything from exhibitions to zoo visits to archival things. We actually work with Department of Cultural Affairs to choose curators that go in and select cultural events and theater related events. And we promote them on social media and do ads in bus shelters and subways and that kind of thing for that. So we've done anytime the opportunity presents themselves. And we've done things in hospitals with music, and the Musicians Union, their members, when this first hit, were out of work. So we did Zoom. One of my colleagues put together a program called Music for the Soul. And that was based on the healthcare workers saying that they needed an hour a day when they could just not have to think about people dying and being sick. And so these performers would be at their houses, and some of them, like Roseanne Cash and Nora Jones, actually performed for them. So there were some celebrities. Tony Bennett kicked it off. Questlove did a DJ session. It's like, all of New York came together. The whole country's coming together. And I think globally we're coming together through virtual means in a way that had never really would have happened otherwise, I think. But it's all about really getting through it and coming out better. And there's a lot of initiatives and advocacy around that particular issue. around Black Lives Matter and around fairness and equity in coming back, especially in like the Broadway and some of the bigger institutions that are not as diverse as the small and independent theaters historically have been in San Francisco and here and in most cities. So there's links to those advocacy groups for people that want to learn more. And there's, you know, our commissioners on task forces and advocates with the state all the time for reopening, because right now theaters can't reopen, but they're pivoting and they're actually changing their public assembly certificates with the Department of Buildings so that they can be considered and use their spaces for exhibitions and installations in the meantime, and also, you know, developing new work as well, because those do fall under state guidelines, unlike performing arts at this point. I'm not sure what it is with San Francisco, but and we did a big, the last live performance that we did was off Broadway in the borough. I think we have a video of that, where we did a performance. We worked with a local theater in each of the 5 boroughs in, was it October? Yeah. And we wanted to show that we finally had gotten through all kinds of city agency work collaboratively, gotten permission for people to do outside performances and get permitting by the city, because a lot of people were doing them on their own, which was great, but we had to make sure they would follow the safety precautions and the protocols that we were, you know, actually holding people to, so that our city could be safer. And so it was a bit tricky to get those. But so we did this to kick off, give people a 20-minute pop-up performance that anybody in the neighborhood, we couldn't promote it in advance, but we filmed it so the theaters could all use it to promote themselves. We did this sizzle reel that you'll see, where it's a vignette of the 5 performances from, you know, La Mama and Pregonis and some of the theaters that you probably know and love. And it really kind of kicked off, even though it's cold, people are still game and they're ready for things. And I know that your mayor came up with something called Jam, which is basically for musicians, and it's permitting for them to come outside and do things. And our city council has been working on something that will probably happen next summer, where they want to build outside structures that people can use publicly. So it's opened up, as well as the virtual world and the camaraderie that we're seeing, and people getting more money at their galas because they've got eyeballs all over the place, and people getting more people watching their work because it's kind of democratized in a way that it hadn't been before. Anybody that has something interesting can get people to watch, and unusual, you know, kind of partnerships have formed out of that. But maybe we'll take a look at the sizzle reel and you'll see what we did in October. And our commissioner's mention is also highlighted here.
They got a man that they don't want no more. And I say, oh, my friend, all you need is a door. We gotta get out when you're down. Put your finger on the map and pick a town. If you want, well, you can stay. If I was you, I'd run away.
We're really excited for people to just walk outside their door, happen upon this, and remember that this is really why they live in New York City.
Off-Broadway in the Boroughs is a fantastic program to showcase and highlight artists that have especially been out of work due to COVID, and this is a really great opportunity to give them time to be able to come out and share all of their gifts. They're really the heartbeat of New York City.
Bringing a little bit of happiness and dance.
It's like a shot of energy. It's a wonderful time to just bring art to people all around New York.
Felt so incredibly good to be with other people, to say hello.
In a pop-up sense, to bring back a little bit of the flavor of live performance.
Socially distanced, everyone wearing masks. It was wonderful to kind of see pedestrians walk by and to go, what is that music? And to sort of be surprised by hearing somebody sing or somebody tell a story. It was quite moving.
It felt good to do what I do. You know, I feel like a fish that hasn't been able to swim.
I hope we brought a little sunshine on a dreary day. We love you.
decide to do this? How did this happen?
I think we were just, well, first we were trying to let everyone know that they could get a permit to perform outside safely. And we had always done off-Broadway in the boroughs because, you know, we had done brought these Broadway shows out. And so we'd worked with a lot of the local theaters in different communities and wanted to showcase their work and bring them out. So it was also servicing, you know, people that wouldn't have the resources normally to go to a theater or didn't know about that they could even go to a theater and see these performances. We brought them to them so that then the theater could get some recognition. People that lived in the neighborhood that had never gone could see that, you know, the work they were doing and know that they charged, you know, like $15 for a ticket on a normal day. And just kind of brought different factions of the community and Bushwick that's being gentrified, you know, kind of the Latino community that's been there for generations with the young hipsters, and they're all together in the park watching this performance. And we, you know, did a lot of promotion in various languages for most of the things that we did. So it was a continuation of that, but we thought, what can we do? Because we would do these productions ordinarily just throughout the year at various times. And we just didn't know how we could do it with the constraints of only 50 people being allowed to gather, including the performers, you know, people that weren't wearing masks couldn't be around, you know, just like a lot of constraints. So we worked with our production company. They did everything to broadcast quality so that we could film these. And then we just brought them out. We just brought them out so that the theaters would get some money and they could pay people. Some of them used the money to pay the performers, and some of them paid part to the performers, and then there are people that are going to work with them on a show when they get back up. So that money will go toward producing the show when it gets back up. It was a really great thing. And it just gave people, you know, it was promoted, it was covered on, you know, I think NBC covered it. And so people got a jolt of live performance after so many months of everyone being locked out of seeing anything live. So it was important to us that we figure out a way to do it, and we did.
So has this like spurred other things to happen in your department, or?
I think, you know, going forward with NYarts is kind of the next step of, like, we're kind of back in the virtual world, seeing how we can develop that, and even thinking of new industries that come around that have to do with media. The virtual reality and the way that most theaters are probably from now on going to have a virtual component, even though it won't replace live theater, it's going to be accompanying it, I think, and that their reach will extend because of that. So we're trying to find ways. We're doing a big music month, which actually has been extended to like 4 months, where there's all kinds of programming that has to do with music, and all of us are kind of working on how we can fit that into our particular portfolios, which in mine, it's, you know, a no-brainer. It's the performing arts, it's such an overlap. We also have an office of Nightlife that's been working on all the restaurants in the outdoor open streets and you know, all of the issues around and that's working with the state liquor authority and all kinds of, you know. Do you guys have outdoor restaurants? Are you doing a program like that?
Yeah. Right. We had, but everything got shut down on Monday.
The outdoor yeah.
There's only takeout now, if I understand it correctly.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, the numbers are really going up. We've been able to really keep that going, and there's been a lot of people that just perform ad hoc out there, and so they're, you know, musicians roving around and that kind of thing. But I think our next steps are really just like trying to figure out the funding aspects going forward of, you know, hoping that we get some federal help and we can keep, you know, the dire straits right now, because the unemployment and the kinds of provisions that have been made by the CARES Act are just about to end. And so there's a lot of people even though we got, theaters considered small businesses and gig workers considered small bit, qualified for unemployment. This is the first time that they've ever recognized that. So I think we did a lot in that regard, but there's just so much that needs to be done to bring everybody back. And it's a whole effort by everybody to think about that, to think of ways that we can help the industry. And so a lot of the things we do is just promote the things that are happening, try to promote all the people that are doing things, get behind the work, showcase it if we can, and just be a part of the recovery and getting these industries back on the ground, and making sure that, a lot of what we do is convene people, put them together. We'll hear about somebody doing something that needs help, and so we'll send them over to the person that can help them. A lot of it is directing resources so that people feel as if they're heard, they're seen, they're getting help, that they're valued. That goes a long way.
It seems to me it's amazing what you are all doing. And frankly, I don't know how San Francisco is, from where San Francisco is coming from in the same way. But one of the things I would love for you to talk a little bit about, there's things like city funding, and it seems like this isn't what you're doing. You're more about partnerships. Can you talk to that? Is that true? Or when is that true?
It's all the way true. And we don't give grants, except we do have a women's fund. This is the one exception, and it's really wonderful. I'm glad you brought this up. It started, I think, 3 years ago, and it's for women identified creatives that we found that they couldn't, and it's in all mediums, from theater and music and media. And we found that especially people maybe in mid-career couldn't find the funds to finish their work. And so in order to finish their work so that then they could get it distributed and get it on air or whatever it was that they wanted to do, or get it touring, we provided $5.5 million that was paid out over 3 years. And so I think the first year it was like $1.1 million that we gave to 64 recipients of people that women-led creatives, basically. And then I think this past year we still had a lot of the city budgets got cut, but we had some money that was already kind of in circulation that we were able to keep in circulation, and this was one of them. So the people that had won the awards for 2020 got paid, and they just had to kind of rearrange what they ended up doing, because a lot of them would, instead of a live performance that they had gotten the grant to do, they had to pivot to a media performance, recorded performance or a filmed performance of live. And so we were able to help them with that. It's actually through the New York Foundation of the Arts is our administrative arm for that. So we often partner with groups like that in order to do initiatives that have a further reach. And so that's the only kind of grant we did. And we did that because there was a real need there, and we were able to get partners together to fund it. And the rest of it is I think every city, especially San Francisco, and we're going to have to pitch your mayor and city government, should have an office like ours, especially now, because it's beyond granting. It's really partnerships, and it's really making the city a vital part of the creative industries, which your city is also very much about the same things we are. We're just bigger and meaner.
Meaner. Woo woo, not me, California. We
bossier.
Bossier. Tell me about it. I have to sit on my New York self.
That's right. That's right. You come from here too.
Well, upstate a little. I shouldn't be like I am, being from upstate. My parents aren't even from New York.
That's
Downstate.
okay, neither are mine.
But I see one question here from Rebecca, and I also want to encourage everybody else to put some questions in the chat. And Rebecca asks, I see there are Black theater coalitions. Are there any organization for Latinx?
That's a very good point. Yes, there are. And a lot of what you'll see in the other links for the advocacy groups, to culture and arts, those are specific that popped up after Black Lives Matter, which I thought was really interesting because they're basically dealing with Broadway, which really does have a problem with representation. And they were kind of joined for that one mission. But most of the coalitions that we work with and that you'll see in the list work with everyone. There are probably some Latinx, we have lots of people that we work with in the communities around issues and festivals that we promote as well. And I can ask them if there's specific organizations that they're working with right now, because a lot of them are less specific than the Black Broadway and some of the coalitions that formed around Broadway. But most of the other coalitions, like the national coalitions and the Be an Arts Hero and Americans for the Arts and many of the others are all encompassing of all groups. But I will find that out, and if you want to send me an email, my email's I think it's in the chat. Then I'll check on getting you some links and put you in touch with people if that's what you're interested in. And you should, it's a really important, and there's also Asian artists, the same thing. There are some Asian artists. It's just that right now, those were the ones that have really come out after COVID specifically, and the others, many of them have been around for a long time and they're working collaboratively. So, but there are people that have been advocating for their sectors and their colleagues for a very long time that have still just remained active.
So do you want to, is there more you'd like to say about the diversity inclusion aspect of that and what's going on in Broadway, or what should be going on with Broadway?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. We funded a study with the Stage Directors and Choreographers Society, which is really wonderful. It's the newest of the theatrical unions. They actually work with us on the roundabout workforce stuff because they handle a lot of they interact a lot with what's going on there. And so they did a survey that, we all knew that there was on Broadway, there's very little representation from people of color at the top as directors, as choreographers, as, the producers especially. And there's I think 3 African-American Broadway producers and the rest are all white. And there are these sets of people that work together from show to show to show. And they're, it's kind of mutually exclusive because there's only 41 Broadway theaters and people wait years to get in. Half the shows are going to come back right now because it's $500,000 just to even start them up again. And some of them were in previews and not, but when they do come back, what these groups are asking for is that the producers make a commitment to hire people of color. And I even though it's Black Broadway and it's actually kind of named that, I don't think it's mutually exclusive. I think it's broader than that in its intent. And that's that people of color will get positions as casting directors. They'll get positions as producers, that the decision, or that the producer will choose a director who's a person of color, that will have some, other than just the performers and the musicians who now are represented pretty equally. And it's got to change from the top. And so this is mostly people saying, I want a commitment. You've said you want to do something to change things. Okay, put it in writing and make an agreement with me that by, this next time of coming back up and opening up again, that you're going to do this time instead of just lip service. And that's how you make an industry change. We're doing that in our office through workforce and through career training and through career panels in all the industries, and opening up avenues for paid training, because it's the kids that need to work are the kids that need paid training. And so we couldn't, and that's going to make a big difference, and it already has. So.
Well, that sounds, I looked at the workforce, the roundabout thing, and it also said you have a boot camp. What is that?
It's like a 6-week course in the summer where all the kids apply, the young people apply. And once they get accepted, it's just a handful, like 15, because for one thing, there's not a lot of opening slots. And so don't want to, have a huge, vast number. And it's also very specific hands-on one-on-one mentoring kind of training. And so they go through the 3 years, and then they become a trainer themselves. They become part of the alumni that is, part of the group. And it's basically, I'm just trying to think of the best way to, I think it's 15, so 30 a year, 2 cohorts. And the way they start, they come in and they work with all the people that run the program at Roundabout, and all of them, also the convening partners and the employee partners that they've kind of secured that are part of this too, from other theaters, BAM, and the Public Theater, and a lot of other groups. So they all kind of come in, and they just do a whole, like a boot camp, they just do a whole rundown of everything that stagecraft involves. And then the students have an idea. Sometimes when they come in, they say, oh, I know I want to do sound. And sometimes they come in and they don't know anything about it, and they need to see everything and have a little bit of a demonstration and a hands-on work, and then have talks by, famous people, go backstage, find out how it all works, what goes into it, what the union requirements are if they ever wanted to, to think about joining. And then they kind of decide more what, I guess after about the first year, most of them will have decided what their particular area will be. But it's a good way of just kind of throwing them into it, getting to know one another. As the first cohort gets advanced, they actually come in and work with the incoming group too, to tell them what they've learned and how they learned and what their problems were and what their struggles were. And it's basically just a really intensive part of it before they get the regular kind of demonstration and training that goes into it. And they put on productions, and they come in and do demonstrations of what they've learned, and they're amazing. They're amazing. They've done a lot of virtual things right now, and we're continuing to work with them on how to train virtually, which is a challenge because so much of this is on hands.
Yeah. So does the boot, maybe you said this and I'm sorry if I missed this, does the boot camp kids go into the program?
Yeah, they have to be accepted into the program, and then they go right into the boot camp to kind of orient them, just like an orientation. But it's kind of a really robust overall, getting into the industry side of things.
And I know this is funded by your office as well as the small business something office.
Yeah, we work with the Small Business Services. They have a workforce program that when we first started this program, we didn't have anything like this to guide us, and we didn't have anything set up in our office in order to actually make it happen. And so we worked with the Small Business Services to create it. But our office did a lot of the work with Roundabout directly through the theater side of it.
So it's just so amazing to see the offices working together. What a great example. So we only have a couple more minutes, and before we leave, I just wanted to talk a little bit about, the things that are happening, what's happening with the small theaters versus Broadway, and, like your feelings about what's going on with all this stuff.
Well, the small theaters, you know, they're not, their ticket price is not, the biggest difference is that they don't depend on selling expensive tickets to fund their theaters. Many of them, as I said, are not for profit, so they do get some kind of, you know, government and private grants to keep going. They've actually pivoted in a lot of interesting ways because they, like Broadway, have been pretty much locked out of their theaters for the purpose of performances, live performances. So as I said, they do get paid for renting out their space for other uses, but many of them have just switched on to some, you know, kind of subscriptions to like 10-minute plays that people will pay $25 a month to see every, you know, performer they've ever wanted to see in their house doing some kind of performance that they're, you know, from Taylor Mack and Susie Laurie Parks to just, you know, everyone in the world is available in a way that they haven't been. And so a lot of them are doing Zoom performances. A lot of them are doing developmental work. Soho Rep is like paying their staff with the money they would have paid for productions. A lot of developmental work is happening. That is happening on Broadway side too, but it's, I think that a lot of what Broadway is doing is they kind of will film something and then work with a, you know, a broadcast station, and they'll work with kind of Broadway HD and other groups that are like this pay-per-view kind of idea. What the smaller theaters are doing, and they're helping one another a lot, is they're kind of banding together and producing operas. They're using different platforms. They're sharing what platforms work for what they want to do. And the unions actually, you know, we just had a kind of a resolution between the SAG-AFTRA filming, you know, union and the Actors Equity Union over rights, so that it's changing the way that unions collaborate as well, because now that things are being filmed, the rights were being, you know, fought over who gets, you know, the rates, which rates apply when you're doing a film of a live performance that's a small, you know, theater. Because even though the theaters are small, a lot of them are union, and a lot of them, the performers are union and members of Actors Equity. So it's kind of surprising some of the things that are happening on the main scale. There was just some news that came out about the Metropolitan Opera, where they haven't been able to settle with the stagehands union and get them to actually reduce their rates. And so there's lockdowns happening there. And I think there's a lot of the industries that were in trouble and looking for new audiences, like the opera, you know, community. They're really having to change the way that they work. And they've actually, the Philharmonic put people on flatbed trucks, performers, and just drove them around town and did performances. So there's a lot of funders in New York and a lot of philanthropists that have been helping on every level with new programming and with supporting playwrights and commissions. A lot of commissions are happening in the small theater world. And I think the people that have money on Broadway and the producers that have money and that have think that their shows can come back are solid enough, they are less apt to develop new work or work together in the same way. I think that it's a real, as it was the golden age in last year for small and independent theaters, I think that they have come out the victor in this in many ways because of their flexibility, because of their innovation, because of their willingness to share the little that they have with, you know, especially information with each other.
Well, Carla, this is the swiftest hour ever. Thank you so much. Maybe we'll have you on again, and we can maybe even have a panel of the San Francisco people with you, with the New York people.
Yeah, I'd love that. I'd love that. And as we come up with new ideas for recovery and big ideas, we'd love to have a conversation and share them and hear what your big ideas are over there.
Well, sure. I don't know what they are. I only have my own big, little, tiny, big ideas. But we will find them out. And please, everyone, please note that the links are in the chat room. Thank you so much for joining us. It's amazing that we have your commissioner on, and we're so also pleased that Susan Brown is on.
Yeah.
This is like royalty at MarshStream. Thank you so much.
I know, and she's doing some great work with her Beyond the Fog company. Everyone should check that out. She's starting to gear up for some podcasts.
Well, maybe we have to have her on too. So
I think you must.
You must. So thank you. I think, is it Hanukkah tonight or tomorrow night?
It started after sundown tonight, but it's tonight. Yeah, it's the first night really, but tomorrow is when it's official. Apparently.
Well, it's the first day. It's the Erev thing. It's the first candle we all lit, if we had them, which we don't in the Trinity Alps. Sorry, my grandmother. But happy Hanukkah, everyone.
Yes,
thank you all for coming.
Thank you for all the great work you do, Stephanie, and for you and Brian. Thank you for your help in this, and thank you so much for inviting me on. It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure for me. We're so grateful you would do it. You had to stay up late.
Oh yeah, this is late. Believe me, nothing.
Well, it's late for San Franciscans even.
Oh, you sleepy town, wake up.
You can't even get anything to eat.
I love your town. I miss being there. I can't believe I haven't been in so long. I can't wait to come and see what you're doing in person and see my best friend.
Well, as soon as you can, we hope you come. There's arms behind you.
Oh, I don't know who that is.
Is that your husband who did all those beautiful paintings behind?
Yes. His artwork is on display. I'm so lucky.
You are. You have to send it across the way. So thank you, Carla. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everyone who came. And we'll see you every night on MarshStream. Goodbye. And no bear got me yet again.
It happens, right? You're on your way to a very important meeting.
The right one, and finally, I turn to the place I always turn when I'm utterly lost and desperate.
Livelier. Can you do something a bit livelier? Of course I can.
We need to talk to you right now. We just need a momento. You can do your homework later.
I composed this song in prison. It sounds.
Walking down the street, going to the theater. I mean, I had many breakfasts at Venus, and then I
read a little excerpt from it right now.
Excerpt. I love that word, excerpt.
And she would call me like from self-help home. She'd go, "They have their Sabbath on Fridays. Did you know that?"
2, 3, 4. And up.
Your ability to be online, pre-check how you look on camera, and also check for glasses. You see how much glare is on that?
Know that we are one.
It sounds like hell, if you know what I mean. But for some reason, we call it living the dream.
Okay, 069, and I don't want any of your smart aleck sex talk that I usually get when I get 069.